Imagine a teacher with his class. This is the last class before the test, before the final test. So he's giving them the final instructions, the final highlights, what they should focus on, what they should stress on when they're studying. This is the final things. The curriculum is big. So that Christ, he's just giving us a final things, high yield questions that will be asked during that day. So just to summarize Christ's life, Christ came, he has to fulfill certain things for salvation. He was born, he was baptized, he went into Jerusalem, he was crucified, he's resurrected. All great things. And he performed many miracles to support our faith and to send us many messages through these miracles. He healed the sick, he rose the dead, he healed the paralyzed, and so forth. But big part of his mission was teaching. Big part of his mission was teaching. And today was the final focus of his teaching. The church basically, during this week, today, dedicated today for Christ's teaching. Tomorrow, and so forth, we'll be focusing on what happened for the last few days of Christ's life. So we'll try to focus on his teaching. So what happened? Jesus was in the temple, and as usual, the Pharisees came across him and challenging him. So Christ, to the point that he said that, see, your house is left to you desolate. And obviously he was talking about the temple. This is the temple at the time of Christ. And unfortunately, a few days back, Christ said, my house is the house of prayer, and you make it a house of thieves. So until that point, it was his house. When they rejected him, he said, see, your house is left to you desolate. So it's not his house anymore, unfortunately. And we're talking about a temple, obviously. So the disciples were a little upset. And they thought, maybe we should show him the temple again. He might, change his mind or have mercy on the temple or his house. So they took him on a Mount Olive outside the city, and they showed him the temple, how beautiful, how great. Then Jesus went out and departed from the temple, and his disciple came up to him, showing him the building of the temple. But Jesus did not change his mind. He said, do you see all these things? Surely I say to you, not one stone shall be here upon another, that shall not be thrown down. So Christ made his decision. The judgment is done. This house will be destroyed. Not even two stones will stay on top of each other. The disciple got worried and anxious. And he had three major questions, and unfortunately they asked him all at once. So they asked him, tell us when will these things be? Obviously they were thinking about the destruction of the temple. And then they asked him in the same sentence, in the same question, and what will be the signs of your coming? And of the end of the ages, or the end of age. So basically they thought once the temple is destroyed, that means Christ is coming again, and the second coming, and the end, and the beginning of the new age. So they asked him all these questions all at once. Christ, as merciful as he is, as responsive to our request as he is, he answered all these questions. But as they were asked him in one sentence, he answered it all in one sentence. And he went through it all. But there is two main different point of views. When we ask, all what we're worried about is when. When are you coming? When is this going to happen? When is this world will be finished? What are the signs? This is what we're asking. That's all what our focus. But Christ is not worried much about when. He's worried about what happens that day. Are you ready for that day? Do you know what you're going to be asked? Do you know what I'm going to be looking for? Do you know what it takes to be with me? So as much as we focus on when is the test, Christ is focused on how the test is going to be. So I'm going to go quickly through the main questions. This is not the focus of the topic, but just I'm going to go through it quickly. So the first question is, tell us when will these things will be. So Christ gave them an answer, and one of the things he said in the answer, when you see the abomination of desolation spoke of by Daniel, the prophet, standing in the holy place. Basically, God gave them a sign. He basically said this time will be the worst time that any human being came across throughout the history, before and after. There was no tribulation, and will not be hardship as much as during these days. So, be careful. When you see the sign, flee. Don't even stay. Don't even think twice. Don't even gather your stuff. As soon as you see the sign, flee from Jerusalem. Flee from Judea. Don't even look back. This is your only chance to flee from this tribulation. And he said the abomination of desolation, spoken by Daniel, basically was saying to them, the Jews, when you see the sign of the eagle, which was the sign of the Roman army, coming upon the city, flee. That's it. This is the destruction of the city. And as you know, in year 70, the Titus, the leader of the Roman army at that time, came with 4 legions, surrounded the city, and it was the most miserable time for human race ever. To the point, they were miserable to the point they could not even find food, to the point that mothers were eating their own children as food. They ate everything. They eat leaves, they eat grass, they ate everything, to the point they could not find anything to eat, even they ate their own children. During that war against the Jews, according to the history, 1,100,000 Jews were killed. And those who were flee are the only people that were saved. It was a major disaster to the Jews. And from that point on, there was no Jerusalem ever. Until there was no a country by the name of Israel until 1948. So that was the first question they asked, without going into more details. But if you read the history of the destruction of the Second Temple, or the Temple of the Jews, it's very amazing what happened. The Romans were not planning to destroy the temple. The Romans were not trying to destroy the city. The Jews were rebellious against the Romans, so the Romans went to calm that revolution. But the Jews got the soldiers so angry, to the point Titus was not even able to control them anymore. They took it. The Roman soldiers wanted to destroy the city. They burned the temple to the ground. Without going into further detail with this, the second question they asked, and what will be the sign of your coming? When are you coming again? In their head, they're thinking, that's it. Once the temple is destroyed, that means Christ is coming. This is not what the truth is, but Christ gave them one sign. He gave them many signs, but all these signs just could be misleading, to the point because he said it will be wars, it will be nation against nation, it will be many signs, but all these signs we can see throughout the history. But one sign that Christ gave, again, I'm not going to focus on this much, but just to give you hints, he said, now learn this parable from the fig tree. When its branch has already become tender and puts forth leaves, you know that summer is near. So he basically told them, you know how change of season, when you see the tree start budding, you know that summer is soon. Same idea. Christ, you know the fig tree, always as a symbol of the Israel, of the Jewish nation. So basically, Christ telling them, when you see the fig tree budding, when you see Israel trying to gather itself as a country again, or trying to build itself again, you know that summer is soon. Which happened again from year 70 AD until year 1948, there was no Israel. 1948, Israel became a nation again in the same area, which historians and people, scholars thinking about second coming, think this is one of the major signs. I'm not saying Christ is coming anytime soon, or he's not coming anytime soon. I'm saying this was one of the major signs that happened throughout. It did not happen for 2,000 years, almost 2,000, just happened 50 years ago. But the third question that they asked him, the end of the age. They're asking for the end of age, what happens? So Christ answered that question with two strategies, two ways. The first strategy, he gave them an exact scenario what's going to happen. And the second way, he gave them three parables. Three parables was answer for that. He gave the parable of the talents, the parable of wedding feast, and the parable of the virgin. So because it's hard to imagine what's going to happen. So he's trying to make it as understandable as possible. And again, he's giving them hints for the high yield questions for that test. Whoever studied for his medical boards, you know what high yield questions is. So basically, this is the question has the major points in your test. The parable of the talent. You all know the parable of the talent, so I'm not going into the details of the parable itself. But I'm focusing on a few things and what we gather from that parable. A master gave 3 of his servants talents, everyone according to his ability. So one guy had the ability of handling 5, he gave him 5. One guy has the ability of handling 2, he gave him 2. One guy had the ability to handle 1, so he gave him 1. And he has a good vision, he has a good judge of character. You know, the guy that handled 5 able to handle 5, and that's what actually happened. The guy had 5, gave him back 5, and the guy had 2, gave him back 2. So that's a proof that the master has a good judge of character. And after a long time, the Lord of those servants came and settled accounts with them. So what we gather from this, there is a time, it is a long time, but there is a time the master is coming and he's settling accounts with his servants, which is you and me. Everyone according to his ability. God is not asking anyone more than what he can. To summarize this, the green is basically go, the red is you cannot go. So the good and faithful, this is the key word that will be asked that day, if you're faithful or not. If you're faithful, you're going. I'll make you ruler over many things. Enter into the joy of your Lord. So the key thing in last day is being faithful. Key thing on the last day is being faithful. So faithful is the key. Opposite to this is lazy. He called that servant that did not trade, did not invest that talent, that hid it in the ground, he's lazy. So who's not going to be with him in his joy? The laziness. Laziness is one of the major diseases of spiritual life. Believe it or not, these 3 talents, Christ did not mention sin as an obstacle going into heaven. Sin is not an obstacle whatsoever anymore. Since he crucified himself, there is no more sin as an obstacle. But laziness is an obstacle. You know, the fathers said that the 3 major devils that hold the human back or man back from being with God: ignorance, laziness, and I can't remember the third one. Forgive me, but laziness and ignorance was the major devils that holding us back from being with God. Okay. And tips from that talent, the master is coming, for sure, but maybe after a long time. Because people said, it's been 2,000 years since Christ died. And you keep saying Christ is coming, Christ is coming. 2,000 years, and he still didn't come. But he is coming. And he said it's going to be a long time. After a long time, the master came back. And the second tip is, we have to settle our account. You have to settle your account. Don't think you're going to pass. There's not such a thing. You have to give an account. And as we said, it's not a matter of doing sin, at least that parable is saying that. It's a matter of being faithful, and laziness will lead you to the outer darkness. The second parable, which is the 10 virgins. Again, without going into details of the parable itself, but there was 10 virgins, 5 were wise and 5 were foolish. Why they're foolish? Because they were not ready for the wedding. Why they were wise? Because they were ready for the wedding. And the sign of being ready is bringing oil with them. Then the kingdom of heaven shall be likened to 10 virgins who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom. Afterward, the other virgin came also saying, Lord, Lord, open to us. But he answered and said, assuredly I say to you, I do not know you. when he came and they weren't ready, they went to buy oil, they came back, the door was shut. Okay? And Christ's answer, what I want you to focus on, is, I do not know you. So, during that day, if you're ready with oil, we don't know what the oil yet, but we're going to talk about that in a little bit. If you have oil, you will go to him, to his wedding. If you're not ready, if you don't bring your oil, the door will be shut, and you will hear, I do not know you. Which is very weird. Have you imagined God does not know anyone? Did you ever think about, well, how God does not know anyone? How could that possibly be? So, the tips we get from that parable, that he is delayed. It said that while the bridegroom was delayed. He is delayed. It has been 2,000 years so far. But he said that. He said, I'm not coming right away. It's going to be a little bit before I come. And again, it's not about sin only. It's about having oil. Are you ready for the day or not? God understands our weak nature. That's why he will forgive our sins as long as we repent. But we just need to have oil. We have to invest. And the third thing, assuredly I say to you, I do not know you. So we need to keep ourselves known to him. We need to keep ourselves known to him. Again, this is still a mystery how we do that. The third parable that Christ talked about is the parable of the wedding feast. What happened is, the kingdom of heaven is like a certain king who arranged a marriage for his son and sent out his servants to call those who were invited to the wedding. And they were not willing to come. This is the key. They were not willing to come. So he sent another invitation, which is another key thing. Again, he sent out other servants saying, tell those who were invited, see, I have prepared my dinner. My oxen and fatted cattle are killed, and all things are ready. Come to the wedding. But they made light of it and went their ways. They did not care for the wedding. They didn't want to go. Imagine, Chris and Heather has their wedding coming, and they invite me, and I was like, Chris, I'm working that day. I'm not sure if I can come, so please forgive me. So he's like, he loves me. He's like, Amir, I want you to be with me. Please come to my wedding. And then I goes like, it's just a wedding. It doesn't mean anything. I love Chris and everything. I don't have to be in the wedding. So just after the wedding, we'll make over. But this is not what happened. The king was very upset with this. Therefore, so the king said, the king, the father of the son, he said, told his servants, go into the highways and gather as many as you find. Anyone you see, bring him over. Invite to the wedding. Okay? So those servants, which is a key, went out into the highways and gathered together all whom they found, both bad and good. And the wedding hall was filled with guests. So the servants went and they gathered everyone. Okay? I don't know, I didn't increase the font of this, I apologize. So he went into the wedding, the hall is full of people, right? And everyone was dressed, it looks like, the parable did not mention that clearly, but as every guest going into the wedding, they handed him a garment to put on the wedding for pictures and for the celebration. So they have to dress according to the occasion. But one of the guests did not have the wedding garment. So the king came and he found that the hall is full of people, but one guy did not have the garment on him. So it's like, why are you not having the garment on? There is no excuse. They gave him a garment, but he was speechless. The parable says that he was speechless. He did not find the answers. So he ordered his servants to tie him up and throw him in the outer darkness. So according to this parable, the way to go with him is accept his invitation and putting on the wedding garment. But if you made light of his invitation, if you ignored it, if you did not care, it's not God being not fair. It's just obviously you did not will to go. If you're not willing to go, he's not going to make you go. And the second condition is if you're lazy again. If you are invited, you don't mind going, but you're lazy to put on the garment, you don't want to look like one of those who are invited, you're not going. If you're not, as simple as putting the garment on, if you're not willing to do that, so he's not going to take you with him. So the highlights of this parable is invitation is to all. There's no such a human being on this earth is not invited. They invited as many people as they found. No matter of tongue or color or condition, poor or rich, any condition. There is no condition whatsoever to be with him. And the second thing is, the wedding garments are handed to those who are willing to come. If you accepted the invitation, as soon as you say, yes, I'm coming, he will hand you the garment. And the third fact is, previous history does not matter. Just come with your garment on. No matter you were a thief, no matter you were far, no matter you were whatever, you name it. No conditions. Just say, I want to come, and put your garment on. These are the three parables that Christ used to answer the sign of the last age. So Christ basically saying, on that day when I come, I'm going to ask you if you're faithful or not. I'm going to ask you if you are ready, if you have your lamp on, if you bring your investment with you, and if you have your garment on. If you have these, come with me to the door. If you are not coming, if you're not ready, I'm not taking you with me. But I'm going to conclude with a scenario. So what are the talents? What is the oil? What is the garment? What is all of this? So Christ answered with a scenario that he said himself. He said, when the Son of Man comes, he will sit on the throne of his glory. All the nations will be gathered before him. So he's going to come with his angels, with him in glory. And it said that it will not be confusing at all. It will not be, is it him or it's not him? It will not be any of that. It will be like, you know how the light, when it's lightning in heaven, it's not confusing. If there is lightning, there is lightning. No two people is like, what is this? So he will come in his glory, and all nations will gather before him. And he will separate them from another, as a shepherd divides his sheep from his goats. How confusing it is to recognize a sheep from a goat. Okay, I'll ask, do you think this is a sheep or a goat? A goat, right? It's not hard. Is this a sheep or a goat? It's not confusing whatsoever. Trust me. Sometimes it's like, how is God going to judge the people? How God is going to... This guy was not with God because of this reason. This guy wasn't with God because of that reason. Trust me, it's not confused. It will not be confusing whatsoever. It will not be hard. It's either you're a sheep or either you're a goat. Either you're a lamb or not. He is the perfect lamb, right? We call Christ the perfect lamb. So either we look like him or we don't look like him. As simple as this. If you look like him, he will take you with him. If you don't look like him, willingly, you're not going to heaven. It's very easy. Sometimes we think it's just very hard. Judging earth is hard. How is God going to be a fair judge? It will not be hard for him at all. As easy as it is for us to recognize the sheep from the lamb, it will be easy for him to recognize the lamb from the sheep. I hope we take this as Christ's final message to us before he's going into his cross. No more talking, no more teaching. This is it. Be ready, be faithful, put on your garment, bring your oil, and come to me to my wedding. If you're faithful over a few, I'll make you ruler over many. If you're not faithful over few, I'm not making you a ruler over many. Just to give you an idea, what are the talents, what are the oil? I did not put that on, but Christ said that when He comes, He will tell people, come, because when I was sick, you visited me. When I was hungry, you fed me. When I was thirsty, you gave me water, and so forth. Obviously, Christ is asking us, not hard things, but things that He gave us, the things that He gave us, and to give it back to Him in that way. Everything we have is His, and we just need to give Him back these things that are His. Glory be to God forever.